Syria 2022. 4 years ago, the bullet tore through Lieutenant Christopher Parker's throat at 847 feet per second. Emma Aldridge was 25 years old when she watched the life drain from her best friend's eyes. The compound smelled of cordite and copper. Somewhere in the darkness, an AK-47 shattered its deadly rhythm. RPG smoke hung thick in the air, turning moonlight into silver fog. Chris's blood was warm on her hands. Too warm. Too much. Angel 1. His voice was a wet whisper bubbling through the hole in his neck. Promise me. Emma's fingers were already moving. Scalpel. Incision. 3 centimeters below the cricoid cartilage. The cricothyrotomy took 8 seconds. She'd done it 17 times before, but never on someone she loved. Never on the man who'd taught her how to tie a proper bowline knot, who'd shared his MRE pound cake on their first deployment, who'd called her kid, even though she'd saved his life twice. Promise me, Chris said again, his eyes finding hers in the muzzle flash. Keep saving them, Emma. You're the best. Then he was gone. The SEAL team extracted under fire. Emma carried Chris's body 300 meters to the landing zone. She weighed 118 pounds. He weighed 192. She didn't remember the weight. She only remembered the silence in her headset when his heart stopped and the way his hand went cold between the compound and the helicopter. The Navy gave her a Purple Heart and a Navy Cross she'd never displayed. They offered her re-enlistment papers. She signed her discharge instead. 4 years later, they still called her the Rookie. Portland, Oregon. Present day, 05:47 hours. Emma ran. Her feet struck the pavement in perfect rhythm. Heel-toe breathe. 5 miles every morning at exactly 5:45 a.m. The route never changed north on Morrison West on Burnside Loop around Forest Park back before the city woke. Her pace was 7:32 per mile, not fast enough to draw attention, not slow enough to lose the edge. The discipline was automatic now. Wake at 05:15, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 air squats. Run, shower, black coffee, no sugar, eggs, toast, protein. Leave the apartment at 07:15. St. Mary's Hospital Emergency Department at 07:45. 15 minutes early every single day. No one at the hospital knew she'd spent 5 years with SEAL Team 3. No one knew she'd completed 51 combat missions, that she'd saved 27 SEAL operators under fire in 7 different countries, that her call sign had been Angel 1. No one knew about the Navy Cross collecting dust in a storage unit off 82nd Avenue wrapped in a green t-shirt Chris Parker had given her during their second deployment. They knew her as Emma Mitchell. She'd gone back to her mother's maiden name after discharge, the quiet 29-year-old nurse who'd somehow landed a spot in the emergency department despite looking like she belonged on a college campus, not in a trauma bay. She was 5'3", 120 pounds. Blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun she couldn't quite break herself of. Blue-gray eyes that had seen too much and revealed too little. Pretty in an unremarkable way. Forgettable, which was exactly what she wanted. Her apartment reflected this carefully constructed anonymity. Studio, 400 square feet, IKEA furniture still in the configurations they'd come in. No photos on the walls, no souvenirs, nothing that suggested a past. But in the back of her closet behind winter coats she rarely needed in Portland, there was a go bag. Always packed, always ready. Inside plate carrier with level 4 ceramic plate is combat uniform and multicam pattern, IFAC. Individual first aid kit with supplies that couldn't be explained by civilian nursing. Tourniquets, hemostatic combat gauze, chest seals, a Sig Sauer P26 she'd bought legally and maintained religiously. Just in case. Though she'd promised herself there would be no more just in case. No more missions, no more blood on her hands at 3 a.m., no more voices in her headset going silent. The hospital was supposed to be different. Clean, controlled, safe. It wasn't working out that way. St. Mary's Hospital Emergency Department, 08:03 hours. Mitchell, we need you in Bay 4, MVA multiple traumas. Sarah Thompson's voice cut through the organized chaos of the morning shift change. Sarah was the charge nurse, 45 years old, 15 years in the ED, and firmly convinced that Emma had slept with someone important to land her position. She never said it directly, but the implication hung in every clipped sentence, every assignment to the worst patients, every evaluation that praised Emma's adequate performance. Emma nodded, already moving. Motor vehicle accident, multiple traumas. Her mind shifted into assessment mode automatically. Bay 4 smelled like gasoline and fear. The patient was male, early 30s, conscious but deteriorating. Dashboard impact. Chest trauma. His breathing was rapid and shallow, 32 breaths per minute. Trachea deviated to the left. Jugular veins distended. Absent breath sounds on the right side. Tension pneumothorax. Textbook presentation. Maybe 4 minutes before cardiac arrest. We need X-ray, Dr. Richard Brennan announced, not looking up from his tablet. Get a chest film, then we'll assess. Emma's hand stilled on the patient's wrist. The pulse was thready, rapid, 140 beats per minute. Blood pressure already dropping. Oxygen saturation at 87% and falling. Dr. Brennan, she said quietly, he has a tension pneumothorax. He needs a needle decompression now. Brennan looked up. He was 58, silver-haired, with the confident bearing of a man who'd been chief of emergency medicine for 12 years. His son James was a surgical resident, 32 years old, adequately skilled, excessively entitled. Both Brennans had made it clear from day one that Emma was out of her depth. Miss Mitchell, Brennan said, his tone suggesting he was explaining something to a particularly slow child. We don't perform invasive procedures based on guesswork. We confirm with imaging. He'll be dead before imaging confirms anything. The words came out harder than Emma intended. Absent breath sounds right side tracheal deviation, JVD, hypotension, tachycardia. Classic presentation. He needs decompression. What he needs, Brennan said icily, is a physician who understands protocol. Sarah, get X-ray in here. Mitchell, you can observe. Emma stepped back, her jaw clenched. In Helmand Province, in Kandahar, and Damascus, in 51 missions across 5 years, she'd made the call. She'd performed the procedure. She'd saved the life. Here she was supposed to observe. The patient's oxygen saturation dropped to 82%, then 78. His lips were turning blue. His eyes found Emma's wide, terrified, asking the question everyone asked when they felt death reaching for them. Please help me. She'd seen that look before. On Chris's face. On 27 other faces. She'd answered it every time. Emma moved. What are you doing? Brennan demanded. Saving his life. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Her hands were already working. She grabbed the angiocath 14 gauge, the thick one, and identified her landmark. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, right side. She palpated the space, felt the anatomy, visualized the pleural cavity beyond. Chris's voice echoed in her memory. Fast and sure, kid. Hesitation kills. The needle went in at 90 degrees, through skin, through intercostal muscle, through pleural membrane. The rush of air was immediate, a hiss like a tire deflating. Pressure releasing. The patient gasped, then gasped again, this time pulling in real oxygen. His color started to pink up. Oxygen saturation climbed 82, 86, 91. 6 seconds. Emma had done it in 6 seconds. The bay went silent. I need a chest tube tray, Emma said calmly, and someone should probably call surgery. Brennan stared at her. His face had gone from angry red to pale white. You performed a needle decompression without authorization. Yes, sir. That's grounds for termination. Yes, sir. Emma's voice remained steady. Would you like me to remove the needle so the pneumothorax can reaccumulate? The patient's oxygen saturation was 94% now. His breathing had slowed to 20 breaths per minute. He was alive. Brennan's mouth opened, closed. Sarah, get the chest tube tray. 3 hours later, the patient was stable in the ICU. The chest tube was in place, properly positioned, functioning well. The cardiothoracic surgery consult had praised the initial management. Dr. Brennan took full credit in his documentation. Emma said nothing. She ate lunch alone in the staff lounge, turkey sandwich, apple water. The same lunch she'd eaten for 4 years. While she ate, she scrolled through her phone, not really seeing it, just maintaining the appearance of normalcy. That was pretty impressive this morning. Emma looked up. James Brennan stood in the doorway. The younger Brennan had his father's confidence and half his skill. He'd asked Emma out twice. She'd declined politely both times. His interest had curdled into something uglier after the second rejection. Just doing my job, Emma said. Really, James stepped into the lounge. Because most nurses don't jump straight to invasive procedures. Where'd you learn that? Nursing school. Right. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You know there's a pool going around about how you really got this position. Someone with your limited experience in a level-wide trauma center. It's curious. Emma took another bite of her sandwich, chewed, swallowed. Is it? Sarah thinks you're sleeping with someone on the board. Martinez thinks it's affirmative action, filling the female quota. I have a different theory. I'm sure you do. I think you're hiding something. James leaned against the doorframe. No social media, no history before 2 years ago, no references we can actually verify. It's like you just appeared one day. Emma met his eyes. She'd learned to hide everything in the military emotion fear, the muscle memory that could turn deadly in a civilian setting. Her face was a perfect mask. I'm a very boring person, Dr. Brennan. Sure you are. He pushed off the doorframe. Just remember we're watching you, Mitchell. One mistake, and you're gone. He left. Emma finished her sandwich in silence. Her phone sat on the table next to her lunch. It looked like any other smartphone civilian model consumer grade, but the encryption software was military grade, installed by a friend from her old unit. The phone had one contact that didn't appear in the regular list. Just a number, no name. Warlock 6. She hadn't called it in 4 years. Hadn't even thought about calling it. The phone rang. Emma's heart stopped. The ringtone was a normal default iPhone sound, but she knew. Even before she looked at the screen, she knew. Unknown number. Her hand hovered over the phone. Let it go to voicemail. Go back to the safe, quiet life. Forget the call sign, forget the blood, forget everything but this careful construct of normalcy. She answered. Yes, Angel 1. The voice was gravel and gunpowder familiar as her own heartbeat. This is Warlock 6. We have a code black situation. Master Chief Garrett Reeves, 52 years old, 28 years in the Navy Desert Storm veteran, 3 deployments to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. The man who'd trained her, trusted her, saved her life twice and been saved by her once. Chief, Emma's voice didn't shake. I'm not in anymore. I know that. I also know Hawk and Joker are bleeding out in Seattle, and you're the only person who can save them. The world tilted. Hawk, Joker, Declan Brenner and Sullivan Carver, 2 of her teammates from SEAL Team 3. Hawk had a daughter 2 years old named Riley. Joker was engaged to a teacher from San Diego planning a December wedding. What happened? Mission went sideways. Warehouse raid targeting ISIS commander Yusuf al-Masri. We got ambushed, 20-plus militants, RPGs, the works. Hawk took a round through the right shoulder, severed his subclavian artery. Joker caught shrapnel in the abdomen, probable splenic rupture. We got them stabilized barely, but they're critical. Emma's mind was already working. Subclavian artery impossible to tourniquet, almost impossible to clamp without surgical access. Blood loss would be catastrophic. And a splenic rupture meant internal bleeding, shock death within the hour without surgical intervention. They need a trauma surgeon, Chief. I'm a nurse now. I can't. Emma, Garrett's voice dropped lower, almost gentle. There's no time for a surgeon. By the time we get them to a facility capable of handling this, they'll be dead. You know it. I know it. We need you to stabilize them in the field, keep them alive long enough to reach definitive care. I can't just leave. I'm in the middle of a shift. I'm 300 miles away. I don't have. Evac is inbound. ETA 10 minutes to your position. Emma stood up. Her sandwich fell to the floor. What? We cleared it through channels. Emergency military consultation. You're about to get called to active reserve duty for a critical medical emergency. The paperwork is already processed. You can't just. Angel 1. Garrett's voice carried the weight of command, now the tone that had led men through fire and blood and brought them home. Hawk has maybe 30 minutes before he bleeds out completely. Joker has 45. I'm asking you to do what you've always done. Save them. Please. Through the staff lounge window, Emma could hear something. A sound that didn't belong in suburban Portland. A deep rhythmic thumping that made the glass vibrate. Helicopter rotors. Chief, what did you do? What I had to. A pause. The LZ is the visitor parking lot. You should probably head outside. And Emma, pack your kit. This isn't a hospital job. The line went dead. Emma stood motionless for 5 seconds. Her mind raced through possibilities. Consequences. The life she'd built dissolving like smoke. Then training took over. She was moving before conscious thought caught up. The storage locker was 10 minutes from the hospital. She'd kept the key on her keychain, though she'd told herself she'd never use it. The go bag was exactly where she'd left it dust-free because she'd checked it every month despite her promises to move on. She changed in the back of her car, civilian clothes off, combat uniform on multicam pattern broken-in fitted, plate carrier with ceramic plates, 21 pounds of protection. The Stomp Pack SEAL Team Operator Medical Pack, 30 pounds of supplies that represented 5 years of hard lessons about what worked when everything went to hell. The 6-hour P-26 went in its holster on her right hip. 15 rounds of 9mm plus 1 in the chamber. 2 spare magazines. She looked at herself in the car's side mirror. The transformation was complete. Emma Mitchell, the quiet nurse who took her lunch breaks alone, was gone. Angel 1 call sign for Navy Hospital Corpsman, second class Emma. Catherine Aldridge looked back. The woman in the mirror had killed 5 men in combat, had performed emergency surgery in 7 countries under enemy fire, had earned the Navy Cross for actions that were still classified, had saved 27 SEALs who would have died without her. The woman in the mirror was a stranger she'd tried to forget. Emma drove back to St. Mary's at exactly the speed limit. She parked in the visitor lot, grabbed the stomp pack, and walked toward the sound of rotors. The AH-64 Apache attack helicopter descended through low-hanging clouds like a mechanical angel of death. Black paint, minimal markings, the kind of bird that didn't officially exist in civilian airspace. Its M230 chain gun was locked forward 30mm rounds capable of shredding anything softer than armored steel. The rotor wash bent trees and scattered trash across the parking lot. Hospital staff poured out of every entrance. Dr. Brennan was shouting something, but the rotors drowned him out. Sarah Thompson had her phone up filming. James Brennan stood frozen staring. Emma walked toward the helicopter. The skids touched pavement. The side door slid open. Angel 1, the pilot's voice crackled through his helmet speaker. Captain Landon Morrison, call sign Hammer 2, Warlock 6 sends his regards. Where are we going? Seattle. Current situation is dynamic. I'll brief you en route. Morrison gestured to the co-pilot seat. Strap in. We're 15 minutes behind schedule and every minute counts. Emma climbed into the Apache. Her hands found the harness buckles automatically muscle memory from 100 insertions. The stomp pack went between her feet. The helicopter systems hummed around her weapons. Hot engines, screaming radios crackling with encrypted traffic. Through the windscreen, she could see Dr. Brennan running toward them, waving his arms. Security guards jogging behind him. Sarah Thompson's phone camera capturing everything. We good to go? Morrison asked. Emma looked back one last time. At the hospital where she'd tried to be normal. At the life she'd built from whispers and lies, and the desperate hope that she could forget what she'd been. Then she thought of Hawk's daughter Riley, of Joker's fiancé, of Gary's voice saying please, of Chris Parker bleeding out in her arms making her promise to keep saving them. We're good, Emma said. The Apache lifted off. The hospital fell away below, shrinking to insignificance. Emma watched through the side window as Dr. Brennan stopped running, as the crowd stared upward, as someone, probably Sarah, posted the video that would be viral within the hour. They'd want answers, explanations. The truth about the quiet nurse who'd been extracted by an attack helicopter in broad daylight. They wouldn't get them. The Apache banked north, climbing to 5,000 feet, the Cascade Mountains rising ahead. Morrison's voice came through the headset. Warlock 6 asked me to give you the full brief. You ready? Go ahead. SEAL Team 3 conducted a direct action raid on a warehouse facility in Seattle. Target was Yusuf al-Masri, confirmed ISIS commander planning an attack on the Pearl Harbor Memorial in Hawaii. Intelligence was solid. Warehouse was supposed to be lightly defended. Turned out to be a trap. Emma's stomach tightened. How bad? 20+ militants with prepared positions. RPGs, heavy weapons, the full ambush package. Team took immediate contact. Fought their way inside, but it was a meat grinder. Final count, 2 critical casualties, 2 walking wounded, 6 effectives, still in the fight. The critical casualties, Hawk and Joker. Described their injuries. Morrison pulled up a tactical tablet, showed her the combat medic's notes transmitted from the scene. Emma read fast, her medical training translating the shorthand. Hawk GSW right shoulder, subclavian artery compromised. Estimated blood loss 2.5 liters. Tourniquet ineffective due to injury location. Hemostatic agent applied minimal effect. BP 7040 HR 145. Status critical declining. Joker penetrating shrapnel wound right upper quadrant abdomen. Probable liver and/or splenic injury. Peritoneal signs present. Estimated blood loss 1.8 liters. BP 8550 HR 130. Status critical stable for now. Time since injury 42 minutes for Hawk, 38 for Joker. Emma did the math. Hawk's blood pressure meant he was in class 3 hemorrhagic shock, maybe class 4. Without immediate surgical control of that artery, he'd be dead within the hour. Joker was more stable, but internal bleeding was a ticking clock. What's the current tactical situation? Team is still in the warehouse. They've fortified an upper floor position, but they're effectively pinned. We can't extract them via helicopter, too much ground fire. QRF is 30 minutes out, but that's 30 minutes these guys don't have. So how do I get to them? Morrison smiled grimly. We're going to drop you in. Emma looked at him. Fast rope. You remember how it's been 4 years? It's like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire and people are shooting at it. He adjusted their heading slightly. You'll insert via Blackhawk with a security element. 150 meters from the warehouse secured LZ. Then you hump your gear to the target building, treat the casualties, and hold position until the QRF clears an extraction route. Simple. Nothing about this is simple, Angel 1. Morrison's voice softened. Warlock 6 said you're the best combat medic he's ever seen. Said you performed surgery under fire that saved his life in Helmand. That's true, Emma remembered. 2018. She'd been 21 years old, barely a year with the team. Garrett had taken her round through the femoral artery, the big one in the thigh. She'd clamped it with her fingers, performed the repair with battlefield equipment while mortars fell around them. 6 minutes of surgery that should have taken an hour. He'd lived. It's true, she said quietly. Then Hawk and Joker have a chance. Without you, they're dead men. The Apache's engines sang their turbine song. Portland fell away behind them. Ahead, Seattle's skyline emerged from coastal fog. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of blood and gold. Emma opened the stomp pack and began her pre-mission checks. Whole blood 4 units of O positive, the universal donor. Plasma, crystalloid fluids. Tourniquets, 6 of them, the Cat 7 model best available. Combat gauze impregnated with kaolin, the stuff that made blood clot like magic. Chest seals, surgical instruments, airway kit. Everything she needed to keep 2 men alive in hell. Her hands moved automatically through the checks. The training never left. 4 years away, and it was like yesterday. She found herself breathing differently, slow controlled combat breathing. 4 seconds, in 4 seconds, hold 4 seconds out. Slowing the heart rate, preparing the mind. ETA to target, she asked. 22 minutes. Morrison glanced at her. You scared? Emma thought about that, about Chris dying in her arms, about the 51 missions before that, about the choice she'd made 4 years ago to walk away from all of it, about Riley Brenner, age 2, who needed her father to come home, about Joker's fiancée planning a wedding she might attend alone, about the 27 SEALs she'd saved before Chris, about the promise she'd made. No, Emma said, I'm ready. The Apache flew on, carrying her toward the fire. Behind them, the video was already spreading. Mystery nurse. Military helicopter. 64 seconds of footage that would be shared 22 million times in the next 48 hours. They'd want to know who she was. The woman in the Apache knew the answer even if they never would. She was Angel 1. And angels didn't let their brothers die. The Blackhawk's cabin smelled like JP-8 fuel and gun oil. Emma sat wedged between 2 Navy SEALs she didn't recognize, both young enough to be fresh from training. They kept glancing at her with poorly concealed curiosity. A woman, small, carrying 30 pounds of medical gear in a Sig Sauer like she knew how to use it. They didn't ask questions. SEALs learned early that if someone was on the bird, they belonged there. The crew chief, a petty officer with 3 deployments worth of wear on his uniform, leaned close to Emma's ear, shouting over the rotor noise. 2 minutes to LZ. Rope's good winds 6 knots westerly. You remember the drill? Emma nodded. Her hands found the fast rope gloves, automatically pulling them tight. Leather palms, reinforced fingers designed for one purpose. The stomp pack was secured to her back with quick-release buckles. The SIG was holstered but accessible. The M4A1 carbine they'd given her during the brief weapons check hung across her chest on a 3-point sling. She hadn't fired a rifle in 4 years. Her qualifying score had been expert. Muscle memory didn't care about time. 30 seconds. The Blackhawk banked hard. Through the open doors, Emma could see Seattle's industrial waterfront sliding past below. Warehouses, container yards, the kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. Smoke rose from one building, thick black chemical. That would be the target. 10 seconds as standby, Emma stood. The 2 SEALs moved with her, forming a stack at the door. The crew chief kicked out the fast rope, a thick braided cord that dropped 20 meters to the ground, swaying in the rotor wash. Go, go, go! The first SEAL grabbed the rope and dropped sliding down in 3 seconds. The second followed. Then it was Emma's turn. She gripped the rope, stepped into space. Gravity took her. The descent was controlled falling. Gloved hands burning with friction, legs locked around the rope. The ground rushing up at terminal velocity until her boots hit pavement and her knees absorbed the impact with practiced ease. 3.5 seconds. Not bad for someone who'd been a civilian 5 hours ago. The Blackhawk pulled away immediately, rotor wash, kicking up dust and debris. Emma was moving before the sound faded, following the 2 SEALs toward a cluster of shipping containers that formed a hasty defensive position. The LZ was a small parking lot, supposedly secure, but Emma kept her head on a swivel. Ambush sites tended to proliferate once one was sprung. Angel 1, a SEAL, emerged from behind the containers. Late 20s athletic build, wearing full kit and face paint. Petty Officer Marcus Webb, I'm your security element leader. Welcome to scenic Seattle. What's the situation? Fluid and fucked, ma'am. Teams hold up in the warehouse, second floor, east side. Militants control the ground floor and are trying to push up. We're taking sporadic fire from surrounding buildings, mostly harassing stuff not coordinated. QRF is 23 minutes out, but they're hitting resistance on approach. Emma processed this. Hold up. Pinned down, wounded and waiting. Every minute that passed meant more blood loss, more shock, less chance of survival. How do we get to them? Webb pointed. See that warehouse 300 meters open ground for the first 100, then we've got cover from cargo containers. Problem is we'll be exposed and they've got PKM machine guns with overlapping fields of fire. So we suppress and move fast. That's the idea. Webb studied her. Warlock 6 said you've done this before. 4. Combat insertions. 51 times. Then you know stick close move when we move. If contact goes loud, we'll handle it. Your job is to stay alive and reach those casualties. Clear, clear. Webb signaled his team. 4 SEALs materialized from the shadows, all business, all lethal efficiency. They formed a wedge with Emma in the center. Infantry tactics. Protect the medic. On my mark, Webb said. 3, 2, 1, move. They ran. The first 100 meters was nightmare fuel. Open asphalt, no cover, completely exposed. Emma's boots pounded pavement. The stomp pack bounced against her spine. Her lungs burned. Somewhere in the darkness, she heard the distinctive bark of an AK-47, but the rounds went wide. Warning shots or bad aim didn't matter. They kept moving. The shipping containers rose ahead like a steel forest. The team flowed into the maze without slowing. Left turn, right turn. Webb's hand signals directing traffic. Emma matched their pace, her breathing controlled despite the sprint. The cardio conditioning she'd maintained for 4 years was paying dividends now. Another burst of gunfire closer this time. The sharp crack of 7.62 rounds impacting steel. One of the SEALs returned fire, short controlled bursts from his M4. Suppression, not aimed shots. Keep moving. The warehouse loomed ahead. Concrete and steel 3 stories windows shattered by gunfire. The east side entrance was a gaping hole where a door used to be. Webb pulled up short, held up a fist. The team froze. Hammer 6, this is Webb 1, we're at the entrance. What's your status? The radio crackled. Webb 1, Hammer 6, east side second floor room 214. Stairwell is clear, but we've got tangos pushing up from the south. You need to move now. Roger, moving. They entered the warehouse. The interior was industrial chaos. Manufacturing equipment lay scattered like the toys of angry giants. Shell casings littered the floor, thousands of them, brass catching the dim light. Blood trails led in multiple directions. The air tasted of cordite and concrete dust. Webb moved like a ghost weapon, up clearing corners with practiced precision. The team flowed behind him. Emma stayed in the center, her SIG in hand now scanning for threats. The weight of the pistol was familiar, comforting, in a way nothing else had been for 4 years. They found the stairwell. Concrete steps, narrow, perfect ambush terrain. Webb sent 2 men up first, then Emma, then the rear guard. The climb was silent except for the whisper of boot leather on concrete and the distant rattle of gunfire. Second floor. A hallway that stretched into darkness. Webb's point man moved forward, night vision goggles down, seeing what Emma couldn't. 2 doors passed. 3. Then room 214 and Webb was knocking 3 quick raps, paused 2 more. Signal. The door opened. Master Chief Garrett Reeves stood there and Emma's breath caught despite her training. 4 years. 4 years since she'd seen him, but he looked like he'd aged 10. His hair was more gray than brown, now cut high and tight in the old style. His face was leaner, harder, with new lines carved by decisions that kept him awake at night. The scar on his left cheek, the one from Desert Storm, the one he never talked about, seemed deeper. But his eyes were the same, steel gray, unwavering, carrying the weight of 28 years in the Navy. He wore full combat kit, plate carrier, multicam uniform dark with sweat and blood not his own. An M4A1 hung from his sling barrel, still warm from recent use. His hands were wrapped with medical tape, knuckles split from close combat. Angel 1? His voice was exactly as she remembered. Gravel and gunpowder. Thanks for coming. Where are they? Garrett stepped aside. The room behind him was a makeshift aid station. 5 SEALs in various states of readiness. 2 sat against the wall with minor wounds, bandaged arms, bruised faces. 3 stood guard at the windows, weapons trained on the approaches. And in the center, on improvised litters, made from doors torn off their hinges, lay Hawk and Joker. Emma's medical training took over. She was across the room in 4 strides, dropping to her knees beside the first casualty, her hands already moving. Petty Officer Declan Brenner, call sign Hawk, 33 years old, married 1 daughter. She'd worked with him on 7 missions. He'd once carried her and her gear 4 miles after she'd twisted her ankle during an insertion. Good man, good SEAL, good father. He looked like death. His uniform was soaked red from right shoulder to waist. Someone had packed the wound with combat gauze, but blood still seeped through. His face was pale, lips colorless. His breathing was rapid and shallow. When Emma pressed 2 fingers to his carotid artery, the pulse was thready and weak, racing too fast, trying to compensate for blood that wasn't there anymore. Talk to me, Emma said, her voice calm and clinical. What happened? One of the SEALs, young, maybe 25, spoke up. Took a round from an AK, 7.62 millimeter close range. Entry wound here. He pointed to Hawk's right anterior shoulder. No exit, bullets still in there. We applied a tourniquet but couldn't get it high enough. Applied combat gauze, direct pressure. He was stable for maybe 10 minutes, then started deteriorating. Emma pulled back the gauze. The wound was ugly. The bullet had entered just below the clavicle and tracked downward. Based on trajectory and anatomy, it had probably severed or severely damaged the subclavian artery, the major vessel that carried blood from the heart to the arm. It ran deep, protected by the collarbone, almost impossible to access without surgical intervention. And it was one of the few places in the body where a tourniquet was useless. She checked his blood pressure with a portable cuff from the stomp pack. 65/38. Profound shock. Class 4 hemorrhage. He'd lost at least 40% of his blood volume. Maybe more. Hawk, Emma said, leaning it close to his ear. Can you hear me? His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, confused. But he saw her. Doc, his voice was a whisper. That you? Yeah, it's me. I need you to stay with me. Okay, keep talking. Riley, his daughter's name. Tell her Daddy tried. You're going to tell her yourself. Emma's hands were already working. She pulled a bag of whole blood from her pack. O positive, the universal donor. Found a vein in his left arm. Started the IV with practiced speed. You're not done yet. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. The blood going in wasn't staying in. It was leaking out through the severed artery as fast as she could replace it. She could transfuse all 4 units in her pack and it wouldn't matter. The hole had to be plugged at the source, which meant surgery, which meant opening his chest cavity and clamping the artery directly, which meant doing something she'd only done twice before, both times in fully equipped surgical facilities, both times with a complete team and proper anesthesia and the patient stable enough to survive the procedure. Here she had a concrete floor, flashlights, and a medical kit designed for field stabilization, not thoracic surgery. Emma looked up at Garrett. Their eyes met. He'd been a SEAL long enough to read the situation. How bad? He asked quietly. Subclavian artery. I can't clamp it without direct surgical access. Can you do that here? Emma looked around the room. No sterile field, no proper lighting, no anesthesia beyond the ketamine in her kit. No surgical backup if something went wrong. No blood bank if he needed more than the 4 units she carried. She thought about Chris Parker bleeding out in Syria, about the promise she'd made, about Riley Brenner, 2 years old, who deserved to grow up with a father, about the 27 SEALs she'd saved before Chris died, about not losing another one. I don't have a choice, Emma said. If I don't operate, he's dead in 20 minutes. If I do operate, he's got a chance. What do you need? In time, space, light, and someone to hand me instruments? She looked at the young SEAL who'd briefed her on Hawk's condition. What's your name? Petty Officer Kyle Hayes, ma'am. You're my surgical assistant. Scrub your hands with the antiseptic in my pack. Garrett, I need every light source we have. The rest of you maintain security. This is going to get loud. Loud how? Webb asked from his position at the window. He's going to scream. Emma pulled out her surgical kit. Scalpel, retractors, clamps, sutures. Everything looked impossibly small and inadequate for what she was about to attempt. She found the ketamine dissociative anesthetic the battlefield surgeon's best friend. It would dull pain and induce a trance-like state, but Hawk would remain semi-conscious, aware, feeling everything through a chemical haze. There was no alternative. She drew up the dose, 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, estimated Hawk at 90 kilograms. drew up 180 milligrams, pushed it through the IV. 30 seconds later, Hawk's eyes went distant. His muscles relaxed. But he was still breathing, heart still beating. For now. Hayes cut off his uniform. I need complete access to his right chest and shoulder. Hayes produced trauma shears and went to work. The uniform fell away in pieces, revealing pale skin marbled with bruises and the ugly wound that was killing him. Emma poured antiseptic over the area. Sterile technique was a luxury they didn't have, but she'd do what she could. She picked up the scalpel. This is an emergency clavicle resection with subclavian artery exposure and repair. Emma said, her voice falling into the clinical rhythm of surgical narration. Talking through the steps kept her mind sharp. I'm making my initial incision 2 centimeters below and parallel to the clavicle, running from the medial border to the coracoid process. The blade bit flesh. Blood welled immediately. Emma ignored it. She cut through skin through subcutaneous tissue, following the anatomy she'd memorized years ago, and refreshed religiously despite swearing she'd never need it. Retractor. Hayes handed her the instrument. Emma placed it, pulled back the wound edges. The muscle layers were visible now. She cut through the pectoralis major, carefully following the fascial planes. Beneath it, the clavicle, the collarbone. The artery ran behind it. I need to remove a section of the clavicle to access the artery. She picked up the giggly saw from her kit, a flexible wire saw designed for cutting bone. It was crude, brutal, but effective. She worked it beneath the clavicle, found her landmarks. Then she began to saw. The sound was horrible, bone grinding against wire. Hawk's body tensed. A low moan escaped his lips. Hayes held his shoulders down. Almost there, Emma murmured. The clavicle separated. She removed a 3-centimeter section, exposing the space beneath. And there, pulsing weakly, surrounded by blood and damaged tissue, was the subclavian artery. It was severed. Not completely, maybe 60% of the vessel's circumference, but enough. Blood jetted from the wound with each weak heartbeat. Emma didn't hesitate. Her fingers dove into the wound, feeling for the artery's anatomy. It was slippery, fragile, trying to slip away from her grasp. She found the edges, pinched them together with her thumb and forefinger. The bleeding slowed, not stopped. Her grip wasn't perfect, but slowed. Vascular clamp, small, in the blue tray. Hayes fumbled through the surgical kit, found the instrument, handed it to Emma. She transferred her grip to the clamp, applying it to the artery just proximal to the injury. The bleeding stopped. Hawk's blood pressure, which had been dropping steadily, stabilized. Not good, not healthy, but stable. Suture, 4-O-proline, cardiovascular needle. The repair was delicate work. Emma had practiced this on surgical simulators, on cadavers, on 2 actual patients in controlled environments. Never on a concrete floor with flashlights and the sounds of distant combat. Her hands didn't shake. Each stitch was precise, pulling the torn edges of the artery together without tearing the fragile tissue further. Proline was strong, designed for vascular work. The needle was curved, allowing her to work in the tight space. She placed 8 stitches, each one tied with a surgeon's knot, each one tested by gently releasing the clamp and checking for leaks. The 8th stitch held. The artery was intact. Emma let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The artery's repaired. Now I need to close him up. She worked faster now, closing the muscle layers, approximating the skin edges. The clavicle she left alone there. Was no point trying to repair it in these conditions. It would heal on its own, or a real surgeon would fix it later. If there was a later. The whole procedure had taken 11 minutes. Emma transfused another unit of whole blood. Checked Hawk's vitals. Blood pressure was up to 85/55. Heart rate down to 120. Oxygen saturation at 92%. He was alive. Stable. Not out of danger, but no longer dying. Hawk, Emma said. You still with me? His eyes opened. More focused now. He tried to speak, coughed, tried again. Did you just operate on me? Yeah. On the floor. Yeah. That's so fucking cool. Then he passed out. Emma allowed herself a small smile. Then she turned to the second casualty. Petty Officer Sullivan Carver, call sign Joker, 30 years old, engaged, planning a wedding. Emma had pulled him out of a firefight in Kandahar after he'd taken shrapnel to the leg. He'd named his dog after her, a German shepherd called Emma, who, according to photos, was better trained than most SEALs. Joker was conscious. That was the good news. The bad news was written across his face in pain and fear. Hey, Doc, he said, attempting a smile that came out as a grimace. Fancy meeting you here. Hey, yourself. Emma knelt beside him, already assessing. Tell me what you're feeling. Like someone stuck a hand grenade in my gut and pulled the pin. He tried to laugh, winced instead. Right side, everything's on fire. Emma lifted his uniform top. The wound was in his right upper quadrant, the area of the abdomen that housed the liver and spleen. Shrapnel entry, ragged edges. No exit wound, which meant the metal was still inside. His abdomen was rigid to touch, distended. Peritoneal signs. Internal bleeding. She checked his blood pressure. 90/60. Not as bad as Hawk, but trending downward. Heart rate 130. His body was compensating, but it wouldn't last forever. What's your pain level? 1 to 10, 11. Joker gritted his teeth. Maybe 12. It's honest. Emma started an IV, hung a bag of fluid. The shrapnel probably hit your liver or spleen. You're bleeding internally. I need to stabilize you for transport. Stabilize sounds medical for I can't fix this here. You're not wrong. Emma met his eyes. I'm not going to lie to you, Joker. This is serious. You need a real operating room with a real surgical team. What I can do is keep you alive until we get you there. How long by QRF is? She checked her watch. 16 minutes out, then maybe 20 minutes to the nearest trauma center. We need to keep you stable for at least 36 minutes. Can you do that? Emma thought about the complications. Splenic rupture, liver laceration, possible bowel injury. Any one of those could kill him through hemorrhage or sepsis. But she'd made promises. To Chris, to herself, to every SEAL who'd trusted her with their lives. She'd saved 27 before Chris died. She wasn't going to lose another one now. Yes, Emma said, I can do that. She pushed more fluids, started a second IV line, 2 routes for transfusion if needed. Drew up pain medication, fentanyl, carefully dosed. Enough to take the edge off, not enough to compromise his breathing. This is going to help, Emma said. The fentanyl went in. Joker's face relaxed slightly. His breathing eased. But his abdomen remained rigid, and when Emma palpated gently, she could feel fluid accumulating. Blood, lots of it. 36 minutes, that's all she had to keep him alive. A burst of gunfire erupted from somewhere below. The SEALs at the window returned fire, short, controlled bursts. Webb was on the radio, voice calm despite the chaos. Hammer 6, Webb 1, we've got movement on the south approach. 10 to 15 tangos with small arms. Permission to engage. Granted, Garrett's voice came back. QRF is 12 minutes out. We just need to hold. Emma glanced at Garrett. He stood near the door, weapon, ready, completely calm. The man she remembered. The warrior who'd led them through 51 missions. The one who'd taught her that being a combat medic meant being ready to pick up a rifle when the situation demanded it. Emma. His voice was quiet, meant only for her. How are they? Hawk's stable. The surgery worked, but he needs proper post-op care. Joker's holding, but he's bleeding internally. He needs a surgeon soon. Can they move? Not easily. Any jostle could restart Hawk's bleeding. Joker's in too much pain for rapid movement. So we hold position. We hold position. Another burst of gunfire. Closer this time. One of the SEALs, a petty officer named Rodriguez, called out from the west window. Chief, we've got more approaching from the container yard. I count at least 6 tangos. Garrett moved to the window, assessed. They're trying to flank us. Webb, get 2 men on that window. Overlapping fields of fire. Nobody gets through. Emma returned her attention to her patients. She checked Hawk's blood pressure, again still stable. Breathing steady. The repair was holding. Then Joker gasped. Emma's head snapped toward him. His face had gone white. His breathing was rapid, shallow. His lips were taking on a blue tinge. Talk to me, Joker. What's wrong? Can't breathe. Emma ripped open his uniform completely. His abdomen was more distended than before, pushing up against his diaphragm. His jugular veins were bulging. His oxygen saturation was dropping 88%, 85, 82. And his blood pressure was crashing, 70/40, 60/30. He's hemorrhaging, Emma said. Massive internal bleeding. Blood's accumulating in his abdomen, compromising his breathing and circulation. What do you need? Garrett was beside her instantly. Emma stopped. What did she need? A trauma surgeon, an operating room, blood products, everything she didn't have. What she had was a combat surgical kit, 4 units of blood, and the training to keep SEALs alive in the worst conditions imaginable. She made a decision. I need to open his abdomen, find the source, control it. Garrett's expression didn't change. Here now. He'll be dead in 5 minutes if I don't. Emma was already pulling out instruments. He's exsanguinating into his abdominal cavity. I have to stop it. You've done this before? No. Emma looked up at him. I've seen it done. I've assisted. but I've never been primary surgeon for an exploratory laparotomy. Can you do it? Emma thought about the alternatives. Watch Joker die, do nothing, play it safe. Then she thought about Joker's fiancée, about the dog named Emma, about promises made to dead friends, about the 27 she'd saved before Chris, about not losing number 28. I can do it, she said. Garrett nodded once. Then do it. We'll handle security. Emma drew up more ketamine, pushed it through Joker's IV. His eyes went distant, his body relaxed. I'm sorry, she told him. This is going to be bad. She picked up the scalpel. The incision ran from his sternum to his pubis following the midline. The blade cut through skin, through subcutaneous fat, through fascia. Blood welled up immediately. Emma suctioned it away with the bulb syringe. She cut deeper, through the peritoneum. Blood exploded outward. It poured from the wound in a rush, dark and thick liters of it. Emma suctioned frantically, trying to see. Her hands plunged into the cavity, feeling blindly for anatomy. She found the spleen first. It was ruptured, torn nearly in half by the shrapnel. Blood pumped from the tear with each heartbeat. Hayes' retractor. Pull back the edges. I need to see. Hayes obeyed. Emma packed the wound with combat gauze, shoving it into the splenic injury, creating pressure. It worked. Partially. The hemorrhage slowed but didn't stop. I need to remove the spleen, Emma said. It's too damaged. She'd never performed a splenectomy. She'd read about it, watched videos, but reading and doing were different universes. She didn't have a choice. Emma found the splenic artery, clamped it. The bleeding from the spleen stopped. She used surgical scissors to cut through the attachments, the gastrosplenic ligament, the splenorenal ligament, carefully avoiding the stomach and kidney. Then she lifted the ruined organ out. It weighed maybe 200 grams. It was destroyed beyond repair. She dropped it on the floor and turned to the liver. The liver injury was smaller, a deep laceration along the right lobe. It was bleeding, but not catastrophically. Emma packed it with gauze, held pressure for 2 minutes. When she released, the bleeding had mostly stopped. The liver's natural coagulation factors were working. She checked the rest of the abdomen. No bowel injuries, no other bleeding sources, just the spleen and liver. Joker's blood pressure was starting to stabilize. 70/45. Emma began closing. She left the gauze in place, packing the liver injury, filling the space where the spleen had been. A real surgeon would remove it later. She closed the peritoneum with running sutures. Closed the fascia, closed the skin. The whole procedure had taken 18 minutes. When she finished, her hands were covered in blood to the elbows. Her uniform was soaked. The floor around Joker looked like a slaughterhouse. But he was breathing. His oxygen saturation was climbing 85, 88, 91%. His blood pressure was stabilizing at 80/50. He was alive. Emma sat back, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. She'd just performed 2 major surgeries on a concrete floor under fire with equipment designed for field medicine, and both patients were alive. QRF is at the perimeter, Webb called from the window. They're clearing the building now. We've got maybe 2 minutes before extraction. Emma started packing her gear. She checked both patients one more time. Hawk was sleeping peacefully, vitals stable. Joker was semi-conscious, mumbling something about his fiancée. They'd make it. If nothing else went wrong, in the next 2 minutes, they'd make it. That's when the gunfire erupted from the hallway. Close. Too close. AK-47s mixing with M4 carbines, shouting. Return fire from the SEALs at the door. Contact left, Rodriguez shouted. 5 tangos in the hallway pushing our position. Emma's hand found her Sig Sauer. She moved to the window, staying low, weapon up. Her mind shifted gears automatically. A combatant. The militants came around the corner fast, 3 of them, AK-47s blazing. They were young, firing from the hip with no real aim. Emma acquired the first target. Center mass, 2 shots, the Sig bucked in her hand. The man went down. The second militant used cover firing from behind a support column. Emma waited for him to expose himself. 3 seconds. 4. Their shoulder and head visible for half a second. She fired once. The round caught him in the upper chest. He spun and fell. The third militant saw his companions drop and broke, running back the way he'd come. Emma let him go. The hallway went quiet. Nice shooting, Doc, Webb said. Where'd you learn that, Coronado? Every hospital corpsman assigned to SEAL teams went through weapons training. When the shooting started, everyone fought. Emma checked her magazine. 13 rounds left. She performed a tactical reload, dropping the partial mag into her pocket and seating a fresh one. 15 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. The QRF arrived 90 seconds later, a full platoon of Marines heavily armed. They brought stretchers for Hawk and Joker, fresh medical supplies, and the news that the warehouse was secure. Master Chief Garrett Reeves supervised the evacuation. He stood by while Emma gave a quick report to the Marine Corpsman, explaining the surgeries, the medications, the complications to watch for. Then the stretchers were moving, carried by 4 Marines, each headed for the Blackhawks in the parking lot. Emma followed, her legs suddenly heavy, her body remembering it hadn't slept in 20 hours. Garrett caught her arm as she passed. Emma. She stopped, looked at him. You saved them, Garrett said quietly. Both of them, against impossible odds. I just did my job, Chief. No. His voice was firm. You did more than your job. You did what maybe 3 people in the world could have done in that situation. Emma didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. They walked to the helicopters together. The night sky over Seattle was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. The Blackhawks waited, rotors turning. Hawk and Joker were already loaded, secured, connected to monitors that beeped their continued existence. Emma climbed aboard, found a seat, strapped in. As the helicopter lifted off, she looked down at the warehouse, at the bullet-scarred walls, at the blood trail from the room where she'd operated, at the place where she'd spent 18 minutes becoming a surgeon and 60 seconds becoming a killer again. She'd told herself she was done with this life, but looking at Hawk and Joker, both breathing, both alive because of her hands and her training and her refusal to let them die, Emma realized something. She'd never really left. She was Angel One, and Angel One saved people, no matter what it cost. The Black Hawk carrying Hawk and Joker climbed through the night sky toward Naval Hospital Bremerton. Emma sat between her patients, one hand on Hawk's wrist, checking his pulse, the other adjusting Joker's IV flow rate. The cabin was quieter now. No more gunfire, no more chaos. Just the steady thump of rotors and the rhythmic beeping of monitors. Both men were stable, not healthy, not safe, but alive, which was more than they'd been 30 minutes ago. The crew chief leaned close. Bremerton, 12 minutes, Emma nodded. 12 minutes. She could keep them alive for 12 minutes. She'd kept them alive through 2 field surgeries, through a firefight, through conditions that would have killed them anywhere else. Except Joker's oxygen saturation was dropping. Emma watched the monitor. 93%, 91, 89. His breathing was becoming labored, chest rising and falling too fast. She leaned close to his face. His eyes were closed but fluttering. Joker, can you hear me? A weak nod. I need you to take slow, deep breaths. He tried, but his breathing remained rapid, shallow. The oxygen saturation continued to fall. 87%, 85. Emma pulled back the blanket. His abdomen was more distended than before, pushing up against his diaphragm, restricting lung expansion. The gauze packing was doing its job, controlling hemorrhage, but it was also taking up space. Pressure on the diaphragm meant restricted breathing. Restricted breathing meant hypoxia. Hypoxia meant death. Emma checked his blood pressure. It had been holding at 80/50. Now it was dropping. 75/48, 70/45. Damn it, she whispered. Garrett was beside her instantly. What's wrong, Dum? He's deteriorating. The packing in his abdomen is creating too much pressure. It's compromising his breathing and circulation. Emma's mind raced through options. Remove the packing that risked restarting the hemorrhage. Leave it. He'd be in full respiratory failure before they reached the hospital. There was a third option, one she'd only read about in trauma literature, one that was considered a last-ditch effort when everything else had failed. Resuscitative thoracotomy. Open the chest cavity. Access the heart directly. Decompress the abdomen from above. It had a survival rate of maybe 2% in ideal conditions. In the back of a helicopter with limited supplies performed by someone who'd never done it before, the survival rate was effectively 0, but doing nothing was definitely 0. How long until landing? Emma called to the crew chief. 9 minutes, 9 minutes. Joker's oxygen saturation was at 82% now. His blood pressure was 70/40. His heart rate was climbing 140, 150. Emma made her decision. Garrett, I need to perform a thoracotomy right now. Garrett's face didn't change expression, but his eyes widened fractionally. In flight, he won't survive 9 minutes otherwise. I need to access his chest cavity, decompress everything from above, give his lungs room to expand. Have you done this before? No. Can you do it? Emma looked at Joker, at his blue-tinged lips, at the monitor showing his oxygen saturation dropping toward levels incompatible with life. She thought about his fiancée in San Diego, about the dog named Emma. She thought about Chris Parker dying in her arms, about the promise she'd made, about the 27 seals she'd saved before Chris, about not losing number 28. I have to try, Emma said. Garrett nodded once. Do it. Emma pulled out her surgical kit for the third time that night. Her hands should have been shaking, exhaustion, adrenaline crashed the sheer audacity of what she was about to attempt. But they were steady. She drew up more ketamine, pushed it through the IV. Joker's eyes rolled back. His body went slack. This is a resuscitative thoracotomy, Emma said. I'm making a left anterolateral thoracotomy incision, fifth intercostal space from sternum to mid-axillary line. The scalpel cut through skin, through subcutaneous tissue, through intercostal muscle. Blood welled up, but less than she'd expected. His blood pressure was so low, there wasn't enough pressure to pump it out. Emma grabbed the rib spreader. She positioned it between the fifth and sixth ribs, then began to turn the handle. The ribs separated with a wet cracking sound. Joker's body convulsed. The helicopter hit turbulence and everyone lurched sideways. Emma braced herself with one hand, kept working with the other. The chest cavity opened. Inside was anatomy that shouldn't be exposed to air. Lungs collapsing and expanding with each breath. The heart beating weakly visible through the translucent pericardium. The great vessels. Emma had maybe 3 minutes before blood loss and exposure killed him. She identified the pericardium. It was tense, distended. Fluid had accumulated inside blood from the trauma. It was restricting the heart's ability to pump. Cardiac tamponade. She grabbed a scalpel and made a quick incision in the pericardium. Blood gushed out, dark clotted, maybe 200 milliliters. The heart immediately began beating more forcefully. Joker's blood pressure started to climb. 75 over 45, 80 over 50. But his oxygen saturation was still falling. 79%, 76. Emma reached up, felt the diaphragm. It was pushed upward tight as a drum, restricting lung expansion. The gauze packing in his abdomen was the culprit. She made a decision that went against every surgical principle she'd been taught. She cut through the diaphragm, a small incision, maybe 3 centimeters, creating a window between the chest and abdominal cavities. Immediately pressure equalized. The diaphragm relaxed. The lungs had room to expand. Joker's oxygen saturation started to rise. 78, 81, 85. Emma reached through the incision, feeling into the abdominal cavity. Her fingers found the liver, the gauze packing she'd placed earlier. It was still in position, still controlling the hemorrhage. The space where the spleen had been was filled with gauze and clotted blood. Everything was holding. She withdrew her hand, started closing. She left the pericardium open. The diaphragm she left alone, a thoracic surgeon would need to fix it later. The chest wall she approximated with heavy sutures pulling the ribs back together. She placed a chest tube, a large catheter designed to drain fluid from the pleural space, connected it to a drainage system. Blood immediately started flowing out. The whole procedure had taken 6 minutes. 3 minutes to landing, the crew chief shouted. Emma checked Joker's vitals. Blood pressure 85 over 55. Heart rate 120. Oxygen saturation 90% and climbing. He was alive. Emma sat back, suddenly aware of how much blood covered her. Her uniform was soaked. Her hands were red to the elbows. The floor of the Black Hawk looked like an abattoir. Garrett handed her a bottle of water. She drank half in one pull. You just performed open chest surgery in a helicopter, he said quietly. In flight, during turbulence. Emma didn't respond. She was watching the monitors. I've been a SEAL for 28 years, Garrett continued. I've seen a lot of combat medicine, but that's the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed. He's not saved yet, Emma said. He needs a real surgeon. I just bought him time. You bought him his life. The Black Hawk began its descent. Through the window, Emma could see Naval Hospital Bremerton, a sprawling complex of buildings brightly lit with a landing pad marked with an illuminated H. An entire trauma team waited below. The skids touched concrete. The side door slid open. Navy corpsmen rushed forward, loading Hawk first, then Joker. Emma followed, giving rapid-fire reports to the receiving doctors. Patient 1, Petty Officer Declan Brenner, age 33, gunshot wound to right subclavian artery. I performed an emergency clavicle resection and arterial repair in the field approximately 90 minutes ago. He's received 2 units of whole blood. Current vitals stable. Needs post-op monitoring and possible revision surgery. The doctor, a Navy captain in his 50s with surgeon's hands nodded, taking notes. Acknowledge. Patient 2. Petty Officer Sullivan Carver, age 30, penetrating shrapnel wound to right upper abdomen with liver laceration and splenic rupture. I performed an exploratory laparotomy with splenectomy in the field approximately 60 minutes ago. Developed cardiac tamponade and respiratory compromise in flight. I performed a resuscitative thoracotomy with pericardial window and diaphragmatic incision 20 minutes ago. He's received 3 units of whole blood, 1 unit plasma. Current vitals tenuous, needs immediate surgical exploration and repair. The doctor stopped writing, looked up at Emma, really looked at her blood-soaked uniform, at her exhausted face. "You performed all of that?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir." "In the field under fire?" "Yes, sir." "And they're both alive?" "Yes, sir." Captain Everett Rhodes had been a Navy surgeon for 26 years. He had operated in field hospitals in Iraq aboard hospital ships in every condition imaginable. But he'd never heard of a hospital corpsman performing this level of surgical intervention outside a proper facility. "Come with me," he said. "I want you in the OR for both cases. Your knowledge of what you did out there is crucial for proper repair." Emma followed the stretchers into the hospital, through the emergency department, down sterile hallways, into the surgical suite where teams were already scrubbing, preparing. She scrubbed alongside the surgeons. Someone found her fresh scrubs. She changed quickly, noting the bruises forming on her arms, the cuts on her hands, the bone-deep exhaustion. She pushed it away. 2 more surgeries, then she could rest. Hawk went first. The operation was straightforward revision of Emma's field repair, proper closure of the clavicle resection site, cleaning, and debriding the wound. Captain Rhodes worked with precise efficiency, occasionally asking Emma questions about the anatomy she'd encountered. "Your arterial repairs is solid," he said at one point, examining Emma's sutures under magnification. "I'm not going to touch it. In fact, I'm not sure I could have done better with proper equipment." 3 hours later, Hawk was stable in the ICU. The prognosis was good. He'd lost his clavicle, would need physical therapy, might never regain full strength in his right arm. But he was alive. He'd see his daughter again. Joker's surgery was more complex. Liver repair, diaphragmatic repair, removal of the gauze packing Emma had placed, exploration of the entire abdominal cavity to check for injuries she might have missed. They found none. Emma's hasty surgery had been thorough despite being performed on a concrete floor with inadequate lighting. "The splenectomy is clean," Rhodes said. "No bleeding, proper ligation of vessels. And this liver packing, this probably saved his life. The combat gauze promoted enough clotting to control the hemorrhage." 6 hours after they'd wheeled Joker into the OR, he was stable in the ICU next to Hawk. Critical condition, but alive. Expected to recover fully. Emma emerged from the surgical suite at 0847 hours. She'd been awake for 27 hours. She'd performed 5 surgeries, 2 in the field, 1 in a helicopter, 2 in a proper OR. She'd traveled 300 miles. She'd killed 2 men and saved 2 others. She found a chair in the surgical waiting room and collapsed into it. Garrett found her there 20 minutes later. He'd cleaned up, changed into fresh utilities. "They're both stable," Emma said before he could ask. "Hawk's prognosis is excellent. Joker will need monitoring for complications, but Rhodes thinks he'll make it." Garrett sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. "I owe you an explanation," he finally said. Emma turned to look at him. "For what?" "For calling you, for pulling you back into this." "You didn't ask. You told me my teammates were dying. That's not the same thing." Still, Garrett's voice was heavy. "I knew what I was doing. I knew you'd left for a reason. I knew about Chris Parker. And I called anyway." Emma was quiet for a moment. "How did you know about Chris?" "I was there, Emma. Not in Syria, but at the memorial service. Back at Coronado. I saw you standing alone in the back. I saw you leave early, and then I heard you'd put in your discharge papers." Garrett paused. "I should have reached out. I didn't, and I'm sorry. It wasn't your responsibility." "Yes, it was. You were my corpsman, my teammate. That makes it my responsibility." He looked at her. "What happened in Syria?" Emma hadn't talked about it. Not to anyone. The memories stayed locked away, surfacing only in nightmares. But Garrett had earned the truth. "We were extracting a CIA asset," Emma said quietly. "Small team, quick in and out. But the intel was bad. The compound was full of hostiles. We got ambushed during extraction. Chris took a round through the throat while covering our withdrawal." She paused. "I did everything right. Cricothyrotomy in 8 seconds, hemorrhage control, fluid resuscitation. But the artery was too damaged. He bled out in 6 minutes, died in my arms telling me to keep saving people. It wasn't your fault. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But knowing and believing are different things." Emma's voice was steady, clinical. I couldn't save him. He was my friend, my teammate, and when it mattered most, I failed. You didn't fail. You did everything possible under impossible conditions. Then why did he die? Garrett didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice carried the weight of 28 years of leading men into combat. Because war is chaos, Emma. Because bullets don't care about skill or training or how much you want to save someone. Because sometimes, despite everything we do, people die. He paused. Chris died because he chose to cover the withdrawal. He chose to put himself between the team and the enemy. That was his decision, his sacrifice. You honored that sacrifice by saving everyone else, by getting them home. Emma felt something break inside her chest. A wall she'd built carefully over 4 years, keeping the guilt and grief contained. It crumbled. I miss him, she whispered. I know. I see him sometimes, in dreams. He's always asking if I kept my promise. Did you, ma'am? Emma thought about Hawk and Joker both alive in the ICU, about the 27 SEALs she'd saved over 5 years, about the promise she'd made to Chris as he died. I'm trying, she said. They sat in silence for a while. Hospital sounds filtered through the door announcements on the PA system, hurrying footsteps, the distant beep of monitors. The Navy wants to talk to you, Garrett said eventually. Emma looked at him. About what? About coming back, not to a SEAL team, not to combat deployments. To Coronado, to the Naval Special Warfare Center. He pulled out a folder. They want you to be a senior medical instructor, teaching hospital corpsmen who will deploy with SEAL teams, Rangers, Special Forces. Emma took the folder but didn't open it. I'm not qualified to teach. You performed 3 field surgeries today that saved 2 lives. You did things I've never seen done outside a hospital. You are absolutely qualified. Garrett's voice softened. Emma, there are kids 18, 19 years old going through hospital corpsman training right now. In 6 months, some of them will deploy with SEAL teams. They'll be in situations like today. If they're trained by someone who's never done it, some of them will make mistakes. Some of those teammates will die. And if they're trained by me, then they'll have a chance, because you won't just teach them procedures. You'll teach them judgment adaptation, how to make impossible decisions under pressure. Emma opened the folder. The offer was formal, printed on Navy letterhead. Senior medical instructor position. Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado, California. Rank Chief Petty Officer. Salary $85,000 annually. It was a good offer. More money than she made in Portland. Better benefits. Respect instead of condescension. Purpose instead of quiet desperation. And it meant going back to the world of combat medicine. I need to think about it, Emma said. Take your time. The offer stands. Garrett stood. I need to check on the team right after action reports. You should rest. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Emma, I need to tell you something else about today's mission. Emma looked at him confused. What about it? When Hawk and Joker went down, I had a choice. We could wait for the QRF's medical team, experienced combat surgeons, full equipment. Or I could call you. He met her eyes. I chose you. Not because you were closer, not because you were available, but because I knew that if anyone could save them under those conditions, it was you. You called me specifically. I requested you through channels, emergency medical consultation, they called it. But the truth is, I told them, get Emma Aldridge or don't bother. His voice was firm. You saved my life 8 years ago when you were barely out of training. You've saved 27 others since then. Today you saved 2 more. That's not luck, Emma. That's who you are. Emma felt her throat tighten. You set this up, the whole extraction. I made sure the best medic I've ever known was there when my men needed her most. That's what leaders do. Garrett's eyes were steady. And you proved me right. Again. Emma didn't know what to say. Thank you, Garrett said, for coming, for saving them, for being the person I knew you were. Then he was gone. Emma sat alone in the surgical waiting room, holding a job offer that would change her life, too tired to think clearly about what it meant. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, 314 notifications. She opened Twitter. The video was everywhere. 64 seconds of footage showing an Apache attack helicopter landing at St. Mary's Hospital in Portland. A small blonde woman in combat gear climbing aboard. The helicopter taking off while hospital staff watched in shock. The video had been viewed 22 million times. The comments were a mix of speculation, conspiracy theories, and genuine curiosity. The news media had picked it up. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all running the story. Mystery nurse extracted by military helicopter. Reporters were camped outside St. Mary's interviewing anyone who'd worked with Emma. Dart Brennan had given a statement describing her as competent but unremarkable. Emma's carefully constructed anonymous life was over. She turned off her phone. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Excuse me, are you Petty Officer Aldridge?" "Yes." "Your patients are awake. They're asking for you." Emma followed the nurse to the ICU. Hawk was in bed, 3 Joker in bed 4. Both were connected to monitors and IVs. Both looked terrible, pale, drawn in obvious pain. Both were alive. Emma approached Hawk's bed first. His eyes opened when she got close. "Doc," he said, his voice hoarse. "They told me you took off my shoulder on the floor. I removed part of your clavicle to access your artery. A real surgeon will evaluate whether it can be repaired. My arm works, your arm works." Hawk closed his eyes. A tear ran down his cheek. "Riley, I get to see Riley again." "You do? Thank you." His hand found Emma's, squeezed weakly. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Emma squeezed back. "Never." She moved to Joker's bed. He was more alert. "Hey, Doc," he said, attempting a smile. "Heard you did some crazy stuff to keep me breathing." "I did what was necessary." "They said you opened my chest on the helicopter while it was flying. The situation required it. That's the most badass thing I've ever heard." Joker's smile faded. "Doc, am I going to be okay for real?" Emma looked at the monitors at the surgical notes Rhodes had left. "You're going to be okay. It'll take time. You'll have scars, but you'll heal. And the wedding. You'll make it down the aisle." Joker closed his eyes, relief washing over his face. "Thank you. I don't know how to... Thank you isn't enough." "It's enough," Emma said. She stayed with them for another hour, monitoring vitals, adjusting medications, answering questions. Being their medic one more time. When she finally left the ICU, the sun was rising over Bremerton. Pink and gold light painted the Olympic Mountains to the west. Garrett found her on a bench outside the hospital watching the sunrise. "There's a barracks room reserved for you," he said. "You should sleep." "I should go back to Portland. It's Sunday. You were extracted Saturday morning. And you're on emergency active duty orders for 72 hours, which means you're Navy property until Tuesday." He sat down beside her. "Besides, we need to debrief, and there's something else." "What?" "We arrested someone during the evac. CIA officer named Clayton Merrick. He was embedded with our team." Emma remembered. Middle-aged man, minimal combat experience there to verify target identification. "What about him?" "He's the reason we got ambushed." Garrett's voice was flat. "We found an Iridium satellite phone on him. Encrypted text sent 15 minutes before we hit the warehouse, giving them our approach vector team's 6 entry point, everything they needed." Emma felt cold. "He sold us out." "Yeah, NCIS has him in custody. He's confessed. Seems he blamed the Navy for his son's death, another SEAL killed in action in Syria 2 years ago. Mission you were on, Lieutenant David Merrick." Emma remembered that name. The young officer who died when their convoy hit an IED. She'd tried to save him, worked on him for 20 minutes, but the injuries were too severe. Merrick was his son. "Yeah, Clayton couldn't accept that it was combat that sometimes people die. He needed someone to blame. So he blamed the Navy, the SEALs, everyone. Started feeding intelligence to ISIS. Today was supposed to be our team's end." Garrett paused. "He didn't count on you." Emma thought about that, about Clayton Merrick consumed by grief and rage, about how trauma and loss could twist a person. She thought about her own 4 years of running, hiding, trying to forget. "I almost didn't come," she said quietly. "When you called, my first instinct was to hang up, to stay in Portland, stay hidden, stay safe. But you didn't. No, because when you said Hawk and Joker were dying, all I could think about was Chris, about failing him, about not failing again." Garrett was quiet for a moment. "Emma, can I tell you something about Hellman, about the day you saved me?" "Okay." "You were 21 years old, 3 months with the team. We took contact during a compound raid and I went down hard. Femoral artery. I'd seen that wound before, seeing guys bleed out in minutes. I knew I was dead." He looked at her. "Then you were there. Dropped beside me like you'd done it 1,000 times. I felt you clamp the artery, felt you working. The pain was incredible, but I wasn't scared anymore, because I knew you weren't going to let me die. I remember thinking I had no idea what I was doing," Emma admitted. "That was my first real surgery under fire. I was terrified. You didn't show it. You worked like a machine. 6 minutes start to finish. When the Casvac bird took me out, the surgeon at the field hospital said your repair was perfect. Garrett paused. After I recovered, I told the CO that you were special, that we'd just seen the future of SEAL team medicine. I wasn't wrong. I failed Chris. You saved 27 others, including me, including Hawk and Joker today. Garrett's voice was firm. Chris would be proud of you, Emma. He'd be proud of what you did today. He asked you to keep saving people. That's exactly what you're doing. Emma felt tears building. She'd held them back for 4 years. But sitting here watching the sunrise after a night of blood and surgery and impossible decisions, the walls finally broke. She cried for Chris Parker, who died too young, for the career she'd walked away from, for the 4 years she'd spent pretending to be someone else, for Hawk and Joker and 27 others whose lives she'd saved, for every SEAL who'd trusted her to bring them home. Garrett didn't say anything, just sat beside her while she cried. When she finally stopped, the sun was fully up. Naval Hospital Bremerton was coming to life. I'll take the job, Emma said. Garrett looked at her. You sure? No, but Chris was right. I'm good at this. Really good. And if I can teach other medics to be half as good, maybe fewer people will die. Maybe fewer kids will grow up without fathers. That's the right reason. There's something else. Emma pulled out her phone, opened Twitter, showed him the viral video. My cover's blown anyway. Everyone knows now that I'm not just a nurse. Might as well be what I actually am. And what's that, Angel One? She said it firmly, owning it for the first time in 4 years. Senior medical instructor. The person who teaches the next generation how to save lives under fire. Garrett smiled. Welcome back, Angel One. They sat together for a while longer, watching the hospital wake up. Eventually, Garrett stood. Come on, let's get you to that barracks room. You need real sleep, real food. Then we'll start the paperwork. Emma followed him inside. As they walked through the hospital corridors, staff stopped to stare. Word had spread the hospital corpsman who'd performed field surgeries that saved 2 SEALs. The woman from the viral video. Emma ignored the stares. She'd spent 4 years trying to be invisible. That was over now. She was Angel One, and she had work to do. 3 weeks after the mission, Emma received a package at her barracks in Coronado. Inside was a crayon drawing. A little girl with yellow hair, stick figure, big smile, holding hands with a man in military uniform. At the top, in a child's handwriting, "Thank you for saving my daddy. Love, Riley." Emma pinned it to her wall. The first decoration in any space she'd lived in for 4 years. 2 weeks after that, an invitation arrived. Heavy cardstock, elegant script. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Sullivan Carver and Margaret Chen, January 15th, San Diego. Emma attended, sat in the back, watched Joker walk down the aisle slowly with a cane, but walking. When he saw her, he smiled, mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." She left before the reception. Some moments didn't need words. The video from Portland never fully died. Emma's Wikipedia page called her the Angel of Seattle, now a title she neither confirmed nor denied. Dr. Brennan gave 3 more interviews, each one revising his opinion upward. Sarah Thompson wrote her an apology letter Emma never answered. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be left behind. 6 months later, Emma stood in front of 45 hospital corpsman students at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. The classroom was sterile military standard, with anatomical posters on the walls and medical training dummies arranged on tables. The students were young, 18, 19, maybe 20 years old, fresh from basic training, eager and terrified. They knew the reputation of SEAL team medical training. They knew the washout rate. Emma knew what they didn't, that the training would be the easy part, that the real test would come on a concrete floor in a warehouse somewhere with teammates bleeding and time running out. "Good morning," she said, her voice carried easily. "I'm Chief Petty Officer Emma Aldridge. You can call me Chief Aldridge or Instructor Aldridge. For the next 16 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to keep special operations personnel alive in combat." She paused, making eye contact with each student. "Some of you are going to wash out. That's okay. Better to fail here than fail when someone's life depends on you. For those who make it through, you'll graduate knowing more about combat medicine than most civilian doctors. You'll be qualified to perform procedures that normally require years of training. You'll be trusted with lives that are irreplaceable." Emma picked up a tourniquet from the table. Cat 7 model, the same kind she'd carried for 5 years. "This is a combat application tourniquet. It costs about $30. In the right hands, it can save a life in under 30 seconds. In the wrong hands, it's useless." She demonstrated the application high and tight above the wound twist until the bleeding stops. You're going to practice this until you can do it blind underwater while taking fire. One of the students raised his hand. Young kid, maybe 19, nervous energy. Yes, Chief Aldridge, is it true you performed surgery on a helicopter while it was flying? Emma had known this question was coming. The story had spread through the special operations community. Embellished, mythologized, turned into legend. Time to set the record straight. Yes, she said simply. During a mission 6 months ago, I performed a resuscitative thoracotomy on a SEAL with massive internal bleeding. The procedure was necessary to save his life. It worked. He survived. Can you teach us how to do that? I can teach you the theory. I can teach you the anatomy, the procedure, the decision-making. But I hope none of you ever have to actually do it. Because if you're opening someone's chest in a helicopter, it means everything else has gone wrong. She set down the tourniquet, looked at her students. Combat medicine isn't about doing crazy procedures. It's about preventing them from being necessary. It's about rapid assessment, early intervention, good judgment. It's about keeping your head when everyone around you is losing theirs. Emma paused, remembering Chris Parker's last words. Remembering Hawk and Joker. Remembering every mission, every wounded SEAL, every desperate fight to keep someone alive. Your job as a SEAL team medic is simple but impossible. When your teammates get hurt, and they will get hurt, you have to save them. No excuses, no second chances. You save them or they die. That's the job. She looked at each student in turn. Some of you are going to fail. Some of you are going to succeed. For those who succeed, you'll carry a responsibility that will weigh on you for the rest of your life, because you'll know that you're one of maybe 300 people in the world who can do this job. And when the call comes, and it will come, you'll have to answer. The classroom was silent. One more thing, Emma said. The 2 men I saved 6 months ago. They were both back on active duty. One of them just had his first Christmas with his daughter since the injury. The other one got married in January. They're alive because someone trained me properly, because I practiced until I could perform procedures in my sleep, because when the moment came, I was ready. She picked up a medical training dummy. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to make you ready. So when your teammate is bleeding out and there's no backup and the situation is impossible, you'll know exactly what to do. And they'll go home. They'll see their families again. They'll live. Emma set down the dummy, looked at her students one more time. That's the legacy of a SEAL team medic, not the procedures you perform, not the medals you earn, not the stories people tell. Your legacy is the people you save, the families that stay whole, the lives that continue, because you were there and you were ready and you didn't give up. She thought about Chris Parker, about his final words, about the promise she'd made in the 4 years she'd spent running from it, about Hawk and Joker and 27 others who were alive because she'd kept that promise. Let's get to work, Chief Petty Officer Emma Aldridge said. We've got lives to save. The students began their training. Emma watched them struggle with tourniquets, with IVs, with basic skills. They were rough, uncertain, making mistakes. They'd improve. With time, with practice, with the knowledge that lives would depend on their skills. Some would wash out. Some would succeed. Those who succeeded would deploy with SEAL teams, with Rangers, with the Special Forces. They'd face situations like Emma had faced, but they'd be ready because Emma would make sure of it. Her phone buzzed, a text message from Garrett Reeves. Hawk and Joker send their regards. Both deployed again next week. You did good. Angel One. Emma smiled, put the phone away, turned back to her students. They mocked her once in Portland. They didn't know she was SEAL Team's top medic. They didn't know about the 51 missions, the 27 lives saved the Navy Cross gathering dust. They didn't need to know. Her students knew. Her teammates knew. Hawk and Joker knew. Their families knew. That was enough. Emma Catherine Aldridge, call sign, Angel One, Chief Petty Officer, Senior Medical Instructor, walked among her students, correcting technique, offering encouragement, passing on the knowledge she'd earned through blood and fire and impossible choices. Outside, an Apache helicopter flew overhead, heading somewhere urgent. Someone somewhere needed the skills these students would learn. Emma listened to the rotors fade into the distance, then turned back to her students, teaching them how to save lives, teaching them how to be angels. Because there were always more lives to save. Always more people who needed someone ready, trained, and unafraid. And she'd make damn sure they were ready.